Welcome to Nerd Dad Chat. Today, the first trailer for Episode 9 of Star Wars came out. Here is our podcast taking a look back at the previous episode.
Okay, so now that we're done talking about seahorses, how crazy they are. I'm glad we have the giggles while we start this because I don't know how much more giggling we're going to do after I open up a sword for you, Eric.
Rip the scab, rip it off.
The fun thing about us being, or the two of us living so far apart, is I didn't get to see your soul be crushed by The Last Jedi last November or last December.
This is the best part of it. So I saw it with my friend. We go see a lot of Star Wars stuff together, and he loved it. We went to a restaurant afterwards to just like chat about it, and he was raving about it. And so I was trying very hard, like not to crush him. So I just kept saying things like, there was that. Yep, you're right, that happens. And he's like, it was just so awesome. And I'm like, yeah.
I agree.
I'm glad you liked it. Meanwhile, in my back of my head, I'm going, it completely sucked ass. What are you talking about, Adam, you moron? I didn't crush his dreams, though, so.
I remember, because I was looking so forward to talking to you, because I was thinking, it was similar to when did we see Last Jedi together? I don't think we did.
Not Last Jedi, no.
But we saw Force Awakens together. And we both left that. I might have raved about it a little bit more than you, but
oh no, we both loved it though.
Yeah, yes. But we both loved it. And I was, and I think I called because you saw an opening night by Last Jedi by yourself, and you felt similar, right?
Yep, I saw it Friday night. You saw it Thursday night, right. I think. So
and you enjoyed it as well.
I did. I didn't enjoy it as much as
love, but yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
But you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. There's flaws and stuff like that, and I can't wait to hear from Eric about it, especially with some of the character development and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
then to hear how little you like. No, I'm not even going to say how little you liked it. How much you loathed it with the passion of 1,000 suns.
So it actually, I still haven't seen Solo, and I literally had no desire to see Solo. Like The Last Jedi kind of sucked all desire to see Star Wars stuff by Disney. And I didn't want that to happen, but it literally just disheartened me so much. It sucked all the joy out of everything.
That is so funny when you think back to the conversation you and I had about 4 years ago out on Nate's porch when we were playing poker.
Yeah.
When they announced that they were going to move forward with new films. And I was adamantly, no, I'm not interested in it. It's not Lucas. It's somebody else. It's not canon. No, I'm not interested. And you were making good points. You're like, well, it could be. No, hold on now. And you were fighting
I was ecstatic that it wasn't Lucas because
the prequels.
So George Lucas can create a world, but he can't write screenplays and he can't direct. And the best Star Wars movies have been the ones where Lucas has had a co-writers on screenplays and other directors. Those have been the ones that have been really successful. And so I was looking forward to getting other writers and other directors and other voices into this universe to create well-crafted stories in this universe that we love.
How did you feel since Force Awakens was such a retread of A New Hope? I mean, there's so many elements. So many parallels that there are to it. It's so much. It was an homage to the original trilogy. It felt like an apology for the prequels.
Right.
And while at the same time created some really neat new characters. Prior to Last Jedi coming out, because I think you've said that you enjoyed Force Awakens, right?
Yeah, yes, I did. Partially because of the things it was helping to set up, the possibilities that it was setting up. It was very much even I was like, okay, this is a little heavy-handed in the retread of A New Hope. Like, check the boxes as we're going through the movie. I mean, come on,
Yes.
it was great to see the gang get back together.
Yeah,
it was great to see the possibilities that was opening up. And the almost mysterious possibilities, which that's half the fun of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like oh, what is going to happen? This could happen, that could happen. And that was all that the fans were like a buzz about, was the mysteries of, oh, what is this? What is that? And I mean, for me, The Last Jedi went out of its way to like unravel and discount and sort of destroy all those mysterious possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now let me ask you this. So, what did you think about the revelation about Rey's parents?
That didn't bother me that her parents weren't cool. I thought not that her parents had to be one of the core Star Wars people, but her parents could be someone cool. I thought that was kind of a and it almost more so in that she had this like desire to know her family so much, and it was that lost opportunity for that desire for her as a character to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
It was like just sort of disappointing all around.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your parents were losers. Like, and
now she doesn't have the sorry to jump in on this, but I think part of it is, especially when you have protagonists like Rey, or like Harry Potter, or where it's like it's your destiny because you come from this lineage. The fact that she's not, she's not Neo, she's not the well, she is, but she's not. It's not because of blood.
She better be the chosen one because she got to be awesome after 2 minutes of training.
Well, Neo wasn't awesome because of lineage either, though.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the fact that it wasn't, it wasn't the stereotypical. You're the bloodline. You're going to be great. The fact that she was, their family was gamblers and drunks and
right,
but yet she still can become the one that's going to.
But it's not that she has to be a chosen one or even be the offspring of someone special. But the first movie set up a cool possibility of her history, her background of something. I mean, her parents don't even have to be like Jedi or anything. And again, it's not that having your parents be nobodies is bad. It was a letdown because it felt like a potential cool opportunity that I guess I don't see the point of just having it be like, meh, nothing. And I get it. They're trying to set up anyone can be a Jedi. And we know that. If you're a Star Wars fan, anyone can be a Jedi. There's different alien races that are Jedi. There's come from all different backgrounds and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to have a family lineage to use the Force. Right. I mean,
your midichlorians can come from anywhere.
Right. Well, midichlorians. See, so that was and that's another kind of point of this, where the first Star Wars and so when I was in high school, we were in this awesome youth group, and we would do talks every week. You'd have one of the kids would get up and do a talk, and mine was sort of using Star Wars and the Bible, kind of equating back and forth, but when I grew up, the Force was this kind of mystical, mythological thing. Like, you didn't explain it. It wasn't scientific, but it was spiritual in a way. And it made like a connection, And when George Lucas introduced midi-chlorians, again, you took away this cool, mysterious possibility of things, and you explained it away. So it's like this weird logical science thing, which... That's fine. It makes sense, but it's way less cool.
Yeah.
Way less cool. Way less impactful or mysterious or
totally
just awesome.
It reminds me of that Robot Chicken where they talk about that and it's like, I am your father. That's impossible. And Leia, she's your sister. That's improbable. And actually, and then it cuts to them standing there having a cup of coffee and a cigarette. And the Force, that's just some bacteria in your bloodstream. Look, if you're not going to take this seriously, just
exactly. Yeah. And that's it, And there was so many, and I apologize if I get going and just kind of ramble.
Why do you think I brought it up?
Yeah. But
dance, monkey, dance.
All right, the sweatshirt's coming off. All right, we're heating up here, folks. So much of The Last Jedi was just so like in The Force Awakens, you set up the First Order as this potentially new enemy force, and they seem to be they have good equipment, and they seem to be kind of, you can tell there's something behind them that's pretty powerful, right? So in The Last Jedi, it's like a bunch of 4-year-olds. The First Order is pretty incompetent. They're not very successful in terms of their actions in The Last Jedi. Their strategy is junk, and in terms of their officers and their generals, just sit there and scream at each other in front of the troops. Mm-hmm. I mean, you find not very many professional armies in the world are going to do that. And so with their leader Snoke, again, the potential mysterious power of him just seems wasted. And so when I look back at the Empire of the original, I can almost admire them in a way. They're efficient. They actually get their job done pretty well. You know,
how many generals does Vader kill in the first movie alone?
No, I understand. But
his own guys.
But
he kills more of his own guys, except for Alderaan. He kills more of his own guys than he does the enemy.
But even in the way that they do it, right? It's like we were saying before, like it's the enemy that's so devoted to a cause. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that are scary. It's almost a dispassion, like without passion. It's like, it's not sitting there and screaming at each other like a little child. Mm-hmm. It's more like, I'm going towards my goal. You're in my way. You're out of my way, mm-hmm. whether you're dead or not. And I'm just going to keep pushing towards my goal no matter what. And that's kind of what the Empire was like. Mm-hmm. And in a way, that made them scarier and more like intimidating. They were mm-hmm. big and large, and they weren't going to care if they trampled on you if you were in their way. Mm-hmm. You lose heart for the story in Jedi because you don't care. You're not intimidated by the First Order. You don't want to root against them because you don't care enough about them. And it's the same thing with the Resistance. Like when in the old one with the Rebellion, they had good tactics. You could tell, like they didn't have the right equipment, they didn't have enough manpower, but darn it, they were really skilled. And that's why they were able to squeak out some victories. They were able to bloody the nose of the Empire a couple times and get their attention enough that the Empire focused on shutting them down. The Resistance, their battle tactics are idiotic. You have people in charge not saying 2 sentences to an officer to let them know what's happening mm-hmm. for no apparent reason. I mean, you have major characters just getting offed in the stupidest way possible. You know, like Admiral Akbar and stuff, to have him go out like that. You know, and he's kind of a beloved character. I mean, seriously, you have a capital ship with apparently no shields. Yeah, and his bridge gets taken out with a concussion missile? If anyone's played X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, a concussion missile is not going to do that to a bridge. You need like about 20 proton torpedoes
if there's one thing I need from my Star Wars Wizard films with the talking fish in it, it's realism. That's what I fight for. It sounds stupid. But that kind of stuff takes you out of the world, takes you out of the story. And again, you find it hard to root for the Resistance because of their incompetence. On the last battle on Crate, what was the point? They all hop in these rickety things with no guns on them, apparently. They fly straight ahead, and then in the middle of it, change their mind and turn around. What was your strategy? What was your point? They had none. And these are supposed to be battle-hardened troops and battle-hardened generals who have been through the rebellion and are now going through the Resistance. And again, I don't care if the Resistance wins. I really don't, which makes it hard for me to look forward to the next movie because I don't care anymore in the good guys, and I really don't care enough to root against the bad guys. So what the hell am I watching this for? So, and that kind of sums up a bunch of the story for me is you took something that I really loved and then get invested in and are passionate about, and in one movie you made it, I don't care. Yeah. And I don't mean to
But there's a lot of fans online who feel the same way I do, who literally go, "You wrecked Star Wars for me, and you made it so I don't care about Star Wars, and I've cared about Star Wars for 30 some years." That's actually, I don't know if that's talent or just incompetence or what. And then you throw on top, and then you throw on top of it the fact that when fans did say, "I didn't like it and I don't care about it," and this and that, and then to have directors and producers come out and say, insult those fans by saying, "Oh, you're this or this or that," that was an extra, like, really? Really? Okay. All right, fine. Then a lot of fans have said, "I'm done." And I didn't go see Solo. And it wasn't because of a boycott or anything. It was because I don't want to see you piss on another part of my childhood that I like.
Yeah.
I've already lost enough of this thing that I liked. I'm going to hold on to whatever I have.
Yeah. Yep.
So with you, I think a big difference between the two of us is our starting point with our enjoyment of the franchise. And I'll get into one of the later on in our conversation.
Sure.
But you started. You're kind of one of the OG fans. I got into it much later. I always appreciated it, and then later on got into it, and then went back and saw the beauty in the original trilogy. Found a nugget or two that was tolerable in the prequels, and then moved forward from there. When you mention the difference between the Empire and the First Order, there's the Star Wars has always had a parallel with current events because it was based off of serials that were very popular when wars were going on. And they wanted to bring fictionalized versions of it. It was always intentional. I'm saying stuff that's basic knowledge to everybody that follows Star Wars. The Empire is supposed to be the Nazi Party. That's what it's supposed to be. When I look at the First Order, I look at more of military regimes that come out of military coups, in which you have the same vibrato as something like a Nazi Party, which has all the swagger and all the the drive in it, but it's that lack of stability within the group that causes that chaos within, which makes them much. I because of their lack of stability makes them a much more dangerous opponent. So when it is the constant yelling, bickering, and fighting for position, and that not knowing how they can, there's that internal struggle, and yet they still got the guns and they got the firepower, so you don't know where that's going to go. There's always been the argument with the Empire that, if Luke would just shut up, the life was okay if they just played it cool, much like how there's been talks about, other like real world empires that as long as you didn't make a fuss, you're fine.
Yeah.
With the First Order, it's power hungry individuals who want to show their dominance, rationality be damned, and move forward, which is very similar to, especially countries like when you see countries in third world countries where governments have been overtaken by military coups, and the generals or the people that led the military coup become general and then becomes leader, and force is the only way they know how to govern. So I guess when I've seen the First Order, I totally understand why it's not as as cool as the Empire, but at the same time, and when you have villains like Snoke that you think are going to be so grand and powerful, and yet they don't see that, hey, the lightsaber's tipping over to the side and that's going to be the end of them.
Yeah.
It's very similar to how with these countries that just another coup will just take over and replace and replace and replace. And that's what has me interested in that. I think, but when it comes to like the vitriol that came after, because it's amazing how divisive Last Jedi was. Because as much like nowadays, you think that everybody hated it. Like the Rotten Tomatoes score for Last Jedi is one of the highest in the series, and
not the audience score. That was the critic score.
The
the audience score was 40%.
Right. Which then you had all the angry fans going to the internet doing what the internet's best at, which is, we have a subgroup that kind of takes over the conversation.
Sure.
But there was still a large general audience that thought Porgs are cool. That fight when Rey and Kylo Ren are fighting together, there was cheers in the theater where I was watching it.
Yeah.
When the ship goes light speed through the destroyer and there's that pause. I remember reading so many different places. This is one of the most brilliant. People say this is one of the most brilliant and beautiful scenes in all.
It was beautiful.
I thought so too.
It was beautiful, but again, so from like a military thing, like one of the things that I loved about the originals was that the battles in the originals always seemed realistic to me. They they weren't super pitched battles. They didn't rely on like one person doing something. Like you watch the space battle at the end of Return of the Jedi, right? It's like an really a good, almost like a battle tactics type of battle.
When the teddy bears take over the
no, space battle.
Yeah.
But and then like Hoth too. Like even though that's a fighting retreat, I mean you see it feels like a real fight kind of thing, and you compare that to Last Jedi where they send one fighter in with turbo boosters that somehow takes out all its guns with 1 or 2 shots each. It's more like, hero moment battle versus like a real battle. And again, that the hyperspace thing was gorgeous, was beautiful. That breaks Star Wars. Because if that is the case, you never are going to fight another battle again. You're just going to have 100 robot-controlled ships and hyperspace them through everything. It breaks the world in that regard. And so again, it's awesome, but the future ramifications of it are very, very
but that's
wide-ranging.
Like so that challenges your story writing, because what you're saying like, hey, the fact that we have remote controlled drone planes now means we're never going to have pilots blowing up in the sky again, and we can't have that.
No, it's true. I totally get what you're saying. Well, I mean, like even the prequels,
there needs to be live people dying in those skies when we have
like even the prequels, you have clone pilots versus robots.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no pilots in the
so
robot.
So it does challenge the writing. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It does challenge the writing.
It's awesome, but and again, like. That whole thing felt so unnecessary because, I mean, so much of the middle part of that movie felt so unnecessary, it's like a Hallmark movie, right? I equate it to a Hallmark movie, and so my wife and I will watch Hallmark movies.
You mean like the Casino Island and all that? Is that where?
Well, okay. So how would it equate to a Hallmark movie?
Oh, I forgot about that. That part I didn't care for.
Yeah, I hated that too.
Yeah.
So in a Hallmark movie, usually what happens is you got 2 people, they're starting to fall in love, and everything's going great, and then something will happen, and instead of one person saying 2 sentences to the other one to explain it, there ends up being a split, and half the movie is like this whole angst, and will they get back together? And finally they get back together, and the person says the 2 sentences, and everything's happy-go-lucky again. All it needs is like 2 sentences of communication. All you need is Holder to say, look, this is my plan. All right? This is what we're doing. Done. You don't need the side plot. Then you don't need the other stuff. Then you don't need the ships getting caught on their way to the planet. Then you don't need the hyperspace thing. It's like creating drama based on stupidity, and it feels so unnecessary.
And I'm going to paraphrase a quote from Hitchcock when people asked about his films and how he had to take these leaps of faith. And he's known as the master of thrillers and suspense. And it's like somebody asked him, well, why don't they just call the cops?
Oh, sure.
And so, like, there's a real simple reason why nobody in my movie ever calls the cops. it's boring.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can, and when you can say,
and it's a straightforward answer.
Right.
It is. It's like
because we're still telling a story. So
because going back to what we talked about earlier. Sorry to jump in.
Oh,
Going back
please
to what we talked about earlier in a different conversation we had, because it would be a much straighter track if that roller coaster just went in a circle and let you ride off.
No, I
That would be a much straighter
totally
track.
get that. But then fill it with something worthwhile.
Okay, that's a good
and not
point.
that garbage.
Yeah.
And you know, with the crap that Kelly Marie Tran is taking online, that's garbage.
Who's she?
Yeah,
she's
Hasawa Rose.
Yeah,
She's the Rose character.
Oh yeah.
But Rose is completely pointless and garbage in the movie, and it's not her acting.
it's the character.
Her character is dumb. You know, it's just. And I get the point you guys are saying, and I think it could have been a really good movie.
Sure.
I think it could have been a really good movie. I don't know what Rian Johnson was thinking. I really don't.
Was that the director?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's getting the trilogy.
Actually,
of movies.
that is now.
Oh, did they back off on that?
Because Iger just did the CEO of Disney just did an interview with the Hollywood Reporter.
I saw that.
And
they're backing way off.
They were talking about the future projects, talking about J.J. Abrams. They're talking about the Game of Thrones guys doing the series for the Disney streaming. But there was no mention of the Johnson trilogy, and they have said they're going to slow things down considerably because they do. He admitted, that May was too early of a release date. Right after, even like the amount of Star Wars that there is currently, which is unprecedented in any of the franchise. It was the original trilogy was 8 years. Then 15 years goes by. You put in another trilogy, but the stuff that filled in the gaps were the books, were the show, the Ewoks shows.
Yeah,
because we had to have the teddy bear shows.
No, those were not good. No, there are plenty of Star Wars things that are not.
But
good.
But they're on different. Like the movies were set aside for the grand events, and then we had and the fact that had Rogue One not done well, and then the conversation changes entirely. You had to have Solo complete. Well, it's amazing that a film can make $216 million domestically and be considered a flop. It's kind of hilarious, but
but I mean, like Rogue One, you can do good Star Wars stories. Rogue One was amazing. Rogue One was awesome because there was no Jedi, no lightsabers in it. I mean, I guess it was Vader at the end.
The Force is with me.
Yeah, but he was not a Jedi.
Yes, that's true.
And he did not. He did not use the Force.
Is that the blind guy?
Yeah. But I mean, it's a cool world to play in, and you can do it well. I mean, those were battle scenes that felt like real battle scenes that had strategy.
The one change I would I also agree it was a great film because they died because they didn't win.
That was the best thing they could have
won,
done,
but they didn't win.
Right,
which is completely off the regular Star Wars formula.
Yeah.
Which I'm not knowing how they did the creative process of this, but when you had something that deviated away from what was normally Star Wars, and I think that's where you get a lot of the themes in, where you can where deconstructing the hero, because even though you had older, you had the original trio coming back for the new trilogy, with Leia and Han in Force Awakens, they're pretty much the same character. You had a deconstruction of Luke Skywalker and his psyche and where he's been in his journey, which was considerably different than than any of the other characters. The fact, when it comes to how angry the fans were, the diehard fans were with the Last Jedi, and we've been talking about blockbusters and how blockbusters exist to bring in the general audience. Mm-hmm. Star Wars is a strange beast in which it relies so heavily on its fan base, and yet at the same time also relies on having a very, very casual fan base where it's, little Timmy's going to buy the Darth Vader and the Stormtrooper toys and just have lightsaber and just enjoy the artificial nature of it. and I look at Last Jedi and the new properties that are coming out that do receive a lot of criticism from the old fan base. And should Star Wars be something that is focused on the dedicated fan base, or should it be something that allows itself to be interpreted and enjoyed by a whole new audience and have their own separate adventure with it?
Oh, I don't think there's a should. I don't think that's the right question. I don't think that there is such a thing with any story, a should, because different people are going to want to see different things. And
Right.
I don't think there's ever a should. That implies that there's a moral imperative,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure that there is.
So one along those lines, I would say, as long as you stay, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a carbon copy, but you need to stay within the style of the story. So, like the MCU,
Just
right?
like Teen Titans Go did with the original Teen Titans.
Well, but so like with the MCU, right? The MCU has been very successful, and they have different characters and different story types, but they've done a really good job at staying within the style of an MCU story, and so it feels cohesive as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It feels. You don't feel like you're being shot out to left field at any point, even though there are differences. Even though, with Winter Soldier is more of a 70s spy thriller, and like
Thor Ragnarok.
and Thor Ragnarok's more of
completely
like a
off
crazy
spectrum.
thing. But it's within, I don't even know how to say it, but within the same style. You know what I mean? And this is where Last Jedi, in my mind, completely went at a completely right angle to the Star Wars style of things, and it missed on a lot of levels. You even small things like I can think back. So with the soundtracks, there's so many iconic, like even from The Force Awakens. I know music from The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any music from The Last Jedi that resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, with the hum industrial design of Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
the vehicles, the ships, everything like that works so well. It's why people still buy, models and sculptures and toys from the originals, because that design speaks to people.
Mm-hmm.
And the new ones, the design, it's not there. It doesn't fit. It doesn't resonate with people, So, I mean, even those things, they miss. They try and they miss. And I guess Last Jedi, it tries and it misses. Even with bringing back the original characters. So Mark Hamill said in interviews, one of his biggest disappointments is they never got the whole band back together. And then, granted, that would have been in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And he's expressed disappointment with his character going out the way it did, because he never really got to do anything with Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
In terms of the story. And even I just had an interview pulled up on my phone right now where someone said, "Hey, Mark, Luke made one mistake with Kylo Ren and didn't try to fix it or redeem it, didn't have hope for it, but immediately, like instinct went to try to kill him, and why was that choice made?" And Mark Hamill said, so he said, "When I understand, I'll let you know." And Hamill has made multiple interviews where he basically, in a coy way, is saying, "I didn't agree with the character. I was doing what the director told me to do, but I did not agree with the Luke Skywalker character as it was portrayed in The Last Jedi." So and not that actors always have to determine.
Right, because Han Solo would have been dead after Jedi.
Right.
Right,
Exactly. Because Harrison, and I wouldn't have minded that if Harrison Ford would have sacrificed in Jedi. Because that was Harrison Ford's original idea.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wouldn't have minded that, because that was always Solo's character type. The guy who's out for himself, but eventually ends up giving up himself for
Mm-hmm.
the greater cause or his friends or whatever. I wouldn't have minded that back then. It would have been sad, but
Mm-hmm.
It would have fit. It would have fit.
But then you lose some of the iconic moments of like when Leia's the one that shoots the blaster when the teddy bears are fighting in the background, and Han goes, "I love you," it's just
Oh yeah.
bringing it back from
you could have gotten
so,
you could have gotten those, and maybe he dies in that final battle or
Mhm.
something,
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but I know I'm in disagreement with the Star Wars faithful. I loved the fact that Skywalker was broken in such a way. I thought it made his character, instead of just making him the Grand Poobah wizard that was going to destroy all, and I think it also made the final conflict between Kylo and him so much more impactful, that you saw somebody who said, who dismissed. You brought bringing faith and Star Wars,
mhm.
and when you have somebody who is so in touch with their faith, and something horrific happens in their life, and they say, "Bleep you, God! I'm disconnecting." That's what get rid of midichlorians. You go back to your faith argument.
Mm-hmm. No, I get that.
And seeing the broken man, and then the exchange with the burning tree with Ghost Yoda, and having the realization, of where his faith journey has brought him, and the importance of the younger generation taking the helm when you thought it was such a bad idea for it to move forward. I'm one again. I'm someone where my starting point with the franchise is much later, and so I don't have the long investment in the way that the original trilogy preserved that character, where you hoped that Luke would continue to be the strongest, individual. But
so it's not even the strongest individual, but with the first Star Wars movie is A New Hope, and Hope is Luke.
Well,
and even Hamill has said, he said Luke is the hopeful one. Luke is the more optimistic one, even though he's a whiny son of a gun. But he, his character, Hamill always envisioned him as the hopeful one. Like, we can do this. We can save the princess. We can do what, And so to have him, now granted, you're taking a long period of time and not compressing it into one movie kind of thing, but to have him lose hope that quickly,
but he lost that during that 30-year gap that we haven't seen
No, he lost hope because he started to have some visions about Kylo becoming the terror.
No, he had a moment of weakness because he had those visions of Kylo.
Right.
He did have a moment of weakness and a moment of imperfection where he was going to kill him, but then he wasn't going to.
But the fact that he went right to kill him.
Right, you're right. He had a huge moment of weakness.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. He had the horrors of his own father come back up quickly, and he did not hold to the nobility of a Jedi for a moment. You're not wrong.
Right.
But then he didn't follow through, and it wasn't just because Kylo woke up. He didn't follow through. He noted the fact that it was a moment, and then I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He noted that fact, and he had a moment of imperfection. So I think then we don't know what happened after that. So we know that Kylo rose up against him, took him out. Whatever, all that happened.
Well, that all happened right then because Kylo...
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, burst him back, and then next thing you know, everything.
And then he's gone, and then he left, and he freaked out and he left, and then he gradually deteriorated for all we know.
But see, that's another inconsistency, is that, so in the vision, in the first one, you see kind of that vision of that catastrophe, and you see the Knights of Ren killing people, but in here, Kylo seems younger. There's no Knights of Ren around. And apparently that's when it all happened. So Kylo took everyone out. But then before we got the glimpses that the Knights of Ren were involved in, he had already been twisted by Snoke. And so, I mean, you get those inconsistencies. So you're like, wait. It not that everything has to be clear, but it just, it feels, it doesn't, it's hard to buy into.
When you talk about how Luke is the hope and how, where it feels, this is where I also think it still holds true to that message, and the fact that he breaks and he loses the hope, and there's the redemption within the movie, and by the end he is the hope because you see that it is his story that carries the younger generation. It carries not only the people who were there that witnessed it, much like this is I know like how Man of Steel always gets criticized for it being way too much of a Jesus allegory. This more than anything is the faith journey. You see the miracle happen before you of Luke Skywalker defeating Kylo Ren without even being there, and then the story of that, much like how the word of God was spread around through it, like the legend. Of the miracles, so that it does inspire. He is that hope. Again, so I think if there is the sadness that he didn't walk, it didn't need to have him be victorious on a white horse at the end. I'm oversimplifying, obviously.
Sure,
but if that's what Hamill wanted, I think it would have I think it would have been the ending everybody expected. That it was a Skywalker that wrapped everything up. At the end of the alleged 9 stories that Lucas originally set off to tell, it was Lucas or it was Skywalker that rode off into the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it is his legend that carries on and allows the Force and the Jedi to continue without him makes him even stronger of a character.
Yeah.
So
plus, and you're not wrong. At the beginning of the first one, he was 19? How old is he supposed to be at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, like 17, 18, 19, something. I mean, he's very young.
Well, he's very young, so he's optimistic. He is the New Hope. He is the New Hope at that point. But far be it for us to say that anybody who's gone through war or anything has become a little grizzled, and isn't just as hopeful and optimistic as they once were.
Yeah.
And going back to something Ted was talking about in another conversation too, you do have your character development, you do have your character growth, but your character growth is not always in a positive direction.
Yeah. No, true. And part of it is as fans, you never get to see Luke's character growth.
Right.
You never get to see him come into his own. It's always assumed or like alluded to. And so, but yeah, there probably is some parts of fans who just, they want to see, same thing with, why part of the reason that the prequels are such a disappointment is fans had always wanted to see Jedi as Jedi. And then it was kind of meh.
Yeah,
the prequels are
it was
meh.
filled with bureaucracy, and much like with again, if we're gonna since there's so many parallels between Jedi and faith, which is intentional,
right?
Where you
it's
can
like
also
a political group,
where you can make the arguments that when the church originated, how it was polluted by politicians.
Mm-hmm.
Same way with the Jedi, and what caused the demise of the Jedi is when the Force is taken out, and it was the hearts of man that took over. Right. Much like how with many organized religion, or like the Christian faith, when Christian faith suffers, it's because it's not God's message; it's the heart of man that comes through.
You make a great point about this story of Luke with him defeating the Kylo without even being there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably very much in the minority of this. That scene, to me, was very meh and almost comical. Like, it wasn't meaningful. It wasn't, like, a grand scene. It was like, oh, all right, And part of that is I just, Kylo Ren does nothing for me. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Kylo Ren is a whiny little kid, and I just want someone to spank him and send him to his corner.
But I think that's the part that I love about Kylo. He's not.
Sure, I get it, but I must admit, I don't. When Kylo Ren goes on screen, I tune out. I don't even want to see him on screen. Like, even his pout, I don't want to see it. And again, I'm very much a minority because a lot of people really love Kylo Ren, and that's awesome. I just am like. He just does nothing for me personally. So and that's probably why those moments are not impactful.
Because if you don't like the character,
then you don't care about what's happening. Yep. So
and this will be the area that we will always agree to disagree.
Yeah,
will be because I do enjoy every aspect of the Kylo Ren character.
Sure,
so I do. So whenever he is on screen, when those scenes are taking place, they do mean a lot more to me. Now, once again, my point of entry into the franchise was, while I was appreciating the originals, it was really seeing what they were doing with Force Awakens and moving forward, that's where Force Awakens was where my interest really got sparked, and it was having Rey, having Poe and Finn, and the complexity of Kylo Ren and his origins is what really fascinated me.
Yeah.
The way that he was presented in Force Awakens, where it was just, especially when you saw it in the movie theater, and how the low bass and that static sound. Unfortunately, like the movie theater we saw it in had the best sound system.
Yeah.
So when he spoke, it was just like, holy God, I wet myself a little bit.
He
because
needs
so,
the mask back. Put the mask back on. They like losing the mask in Last Jedi was awful.
But it's
he needs
part,
it.
It's part of the farce, and I think Kylo Ren's a conversation for a whole new day.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We'll wrap
totally.
up now, but I think that will be a point. So much like how with our last conversation with Ready Player One, I'm not gonna our 30-minute conversation is not going to change my opinion
totally.
on the book and the movie, but I do have an appreciation for why other people enjoyed it, and you can spell a lot more. And you might still think Last Jedi is a piece of hot garbage, and there's plenty of reason. I mean, there's so many aspects of the film that I didn't enjoy. We didn't even touch on as well, especially how compartmental the film felt as opposed to the grand scope of how the other film. That was the thing that always frustrated me about Last Jedi the most. But hopefully you can see why you can still enjoy Star Wars and not think that The Last Jedi is blasphemous. So
Yeah.
that was fun.
Good conversation, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and we will talk to you real soon.